Hello, and welcome to the Still Standing series. I'm your host, Coach Violet Coots, and I'm so happy to have my special guest with me today, Baylee Sanders. I'm a Christian life coach, equipping and empowering individuals to live in their true identity in being who God created them to be. Uh, I'd love for you to grab my free biblical affirmation cards so that you can start renewing your mind today and finding that freedom. And if you're feeling stuck in any area of your life, schedule a free breakthrough session with me. The link will be in the show description. Hello, Baylee.
Hi, thanks for having me today.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm excited to have you, and I'm excited for everybody to hear your testimony and what you've got to share. So just tell everybody a little bit about you before we jump right into, your testimony and what God's laying on your heart today.
So like she said, my name is Bailey. I'm from Western North Carolina. I'm from a really small town called Burnsville. You'll hear more about that later in the show. And then I went to college at Appalachian State, met my husband, we fell in love, got married, and settled down in a small town outside of Boone, North Carolina. We have a beautiful daughter. She's 2. She's spunky. She's the light of my life. And we have a son on the way who's due in December, the end of December. So
Okay,
full,
congratulations.
full life.
Yes, yes. Oh, that's awesome. Well, like I said, I'm glad to have you. And so I'm just going to turn this over to you and let you share what God's laid on your heart today and, just that testimony of you're still standing and what God's doing through that.
Yeah. Thank you again just for the space to share this story. So my story begins almost a year ago, on September 27th, 2024. Hurricane Helene. I don't know where your listeners are from. You may have heard of this hurricane, or it may be complete news to you. But Hurricane Helene came through Florida, devastated Florida. But it kept coming up the coast, and it came into the mountains of Western North Carolina, and it just stalled. The hurricane was absolutely devastating, and part of what made it so bad is we had some type of weather front a few days before, or it had rained for a few days on end. So all of our creeks, all of our rivers, everything were already at capacity. Places that flood with typical heavy rain were already kind of flooding a little bit. And that was before the hurricane came in. And then the hurricane came in and just absolutely just devastated most of Western North Carolina. So that's where my story starts. My area where I live actually wasn't hit that hard. I mean, we still definitely got the heavy rain, we got the wind, but my neighborhood had no problems. The larger county that I live in definitely had some damage and stuff like that, but none of us were expecting the storm to be as bad as it was. Just kind of like, the places that normally flood are going to flood, and might have a few trees down here and there, but it's not going to be that bad. And the first thing that tipped me off that, like, this storm is not good, was a phone call that I got from my dad. So my dad is a sheriff's deputy in the county next to the one that my parents live in, and he called me that morning. And I had been texting my family like, y'all, is it good, like what's happening, I don't know. And my dad called, and he was like, are you okay, like what's it like up there? And I told him that like things look fine at our house. And he said it's pretty bad. And he told me, he's like, I gotta tell you this, like I gotta tell you what just happened, or what had happened a few hours prior. And he was out clearing the roads. So the sheriff at the time just had the deputies just clearing roads, clearing trees out of the road so ambulances, people could get through and help rescue, because rescues were already happening that early in the morning. And he had been using his chainsaw all morning long, cutting trees, cutting limbs out of the road. He said it had been working fine. But then all of a sudden, his chainsaw stopped working. And so, because it stopped, it made him physically take a step back to like look at it and see what could be wrong with it. And the moment he took that step back, a tree fell and landed exactly where he had just stood. And that was the Lord 100% saved
Yes,
his life.
yes.
Um,
No, it just gives me, it gave me chills when you was telling me that a few days ago when we talked, and it's giving me chills again today here, and you say it again.
yeah, it's a powerful testimony. The Lord absolutely saved my dad's life. And I'm so grateful for that. But so he tells me that, and then he's like, "Okay, I gotta go. I love you. Bye." And I'm just left standing in my kitchen of like, oh, this might be pretty bad. So I'm like getting on Facebook and seeing everybody posting all these things. And after that, I'm like texting my mom, texting my brother, trying to call them, like, are you guys okay? What's happening? And all of a sudden, I'm getting nothing out to my family back in Burnsville. Where I live right now is about an hour and a half away from them, so I'm not close. I can't go there, which don't want to get out in the middle of this, anyways.
Right? Yeah.
Um, so nothing's going out to them, but I'm still like at that point our power had went out, but we still had cell service, so I'm still able to see like people posting stuff on Facebook in Boone, like King Street looked like a river, like that street never floods, but it looked like a river was running down it, like it was crazy. And so I'm starting to realize like the magnitude of the storm. And then a few hours later, our cell service went out. So the world just felt completely dark. And I'm
Yeah.
just left sitting in my house watching it rain. Like there's nothing to do. I felt so like helpless and just so anxious and worried because one of the last things I hear is my dad literally escaping death by the
Right.
Lord's
Yes.
hand, but he's out in it and I'm realizing how bad it is. And we went to bed. My husband, he grilled a really nice dinner on our charcoal grill. That was like the highlight of that day. I remember he found some steak in our deep freezer that he pulled out really quick and then shut it so it would stay cold. But he grilled some steak, and then we went to bed when it got dark. It's like, what else are we gonna do?
Right.
Um, and I barely slept. I remember having to like speak scripture over myself, like Christ is with them, like God is the Lord of armies is always with us.
Yeah.
Like he's with me and he's with my family, even though I have no idea how they are. And I sleep in bits and spurts. And then my husband woke me up at like 2 a.m. and he's like, "Hey, we have service now. Like our cell service is back." So I'll never forget pulling out my phone and the brightness was all the way up, so it like jolted me awake. And I've got I don't know how many missed text messages, phone calls. We've got some family out of state in South Carolina and Florida. And my in laws live in the middle of the state that wasn't impacted by the storm. So, like, all of them or have texted me and called me because they're really seeing everything that's happening because they never lost service, so they could see the weatherman and all these things talking about how bad this is. Um,
Right.
and I scroll through all of that, and there's nothing for my family and I like freaked out. I was like, "Are they
Sure.
okay? Like, what happened? I don't know." And then that began the longest 3 days of my life. I didn't hear from anyone in my family for 3 days after that, and it was awful because at that
Wow.
point, people were either leaving Burnsville or loved ones who have family there were going to Burnsville. We couldn't go because we had a 1.5-year-old at the time. I was like, this doesn't feel safe. And also, any major road that we would have taken from Boone, we physically couldn't get there. Like one of the main highways was out because it had a landslide and the road was messed up, and so we couldn't
Wow.
get there. But I'm seeing all this on Facebook from people who could get in or who could got out, and they're like, it's awful. It's like the apocalypse. Like we need help. We need this. We need that. And I'm just like, is my family, are they dead? Are they alive? Are they
Right.
okay? Like it was just this huge weight. Praise the Lord. I did finally hear from them and they all physically survived. They didn't have a ton of, there was a little bit of property damage, but nothing like they can't live in their house anymore kind of damage.
Right.
So I was very thankful to the Lord that they were okay. But emotionally, there was a lot of emotional damage. And that began just a really hard season for most of this past year, just walking through the aftermath of the storm and everything that came from that.
Right. Right. Yeah. I can't even imagine. And, you know, I mentioned to you, myself and some from our church, we were fortunate enough, we got to come down. We came down for about a week to help with some of the cleanup and to help with and everything. And just even seeing what we saw, and we wasn't in the worst hit areas, but it was still, unable to wrap my mind around even what I was seeing,
Yeah.
there's just that devastation and everything. So, and still, still can't fully, but, because it's even though you're there, even though went in and you see this and all, it still is like, wow, you just can't, I can't grasp it.
I'll never forget the first time we could make it down. I think it was like 2 weeks after the storm, week and a half, something like that. We were finally able to make it down, and that car ride, I was just in awe. Like I couldn't do anything but just look at everything around me. And this
Yeah,
is a drive I've made multiple times a month for the past like 5, 6 years. Like
yeah,
very familiar to me, and I remember being like, this can't be my hometown. Like this isn't right. It literally looks like a war just went here through here or something. Like it was
right.
awful.
Phew. Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you there,
You're
but
good. um but yeah, so that was just really hard walking through all of that, walking through the guilt of, my world looks normal, but my family's world will never be normal again. Just their day to day, physically,
yeah,
things they look at, the things they have to drive through, the detours they have to take because the roads are just gone.
right,
Dealing with that and dealing with just struggling with like where is my home, and like my home looks different now, it'll never look the same. And my daughter and now my son, I wasn't pregnant at the time, but like they'll never see the Burnsville that I used to know, that raised
true.
me and made me who I am, just wrestling with all sorts of those things. And that leads me to February of this year. We had some ice storms that were really bad. And actually, the ice storms up here caused, in my area, more damage than the hurricane did, which is crazy. So there was like a few days of just, powers flickering on and off all the time. There's high winds, and just brought me right back to the hurricane, to September 27th, 2024. And for days, my body just felt stuck in fight or flight. And I, one Sunday, after having like a meltdown that morning, just like, I can't handle this. It's raining really hard. I don't want to go out and go to church. Why are we doing this? I remember like yelling at my husband, and he was like, Baylee, we're fine. We're safe. Like, they wouldn't be like, it's okay. But I just had this response because I just
Right.
felt stuck in fight or flight. And so that night, after putting my daughter to bed, I went to my bedroom and I just like laid my soul bare before the Lord. I was like, God, I cannot live like this anymore. Like, you're going to have to do something. I'm not okay. Like, I can't keep
Right.
living like this. I'm going to go crazy. Like, just told him to please do something. I cried, I laid down before him, and then, I finished praying. I wiped my tears and I pulled out my journal because I had just this line in my head that I couldn't get out. And I was like, I need to write this down. And the line was, it started to rain one day and it didn't stop. And I
Mm.
wrote it down, and then all of a sudden I like keep writing, and then I wrote a poem, and I was like, what in the world is this? And then I just couldn't stop. I wrote 4 poems over the span of like an hour and a half that night after praying. And I feel like it's important to note that I am not a poetry person at all. Like, I hated poetry units in school. I have never once picked up a poem or a collection of poetry for fun, just to read on my own time.
Right.
I'm a black and white girl. I want to read something and it be what it is. I don't want to have to search for a hidden meaning or whatever. And so I was so shocked that poetry is what I was writing. Like, I would never choose to do this. But for the next few days, I just kept feeling that tug from the spirit, sit down and write, sit down and write. And finally, after writing, I think it was like a few days, I was like, God, what are you doing? Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, this is weird. And God was so gracious and merciful. And He told me, He was like, I want you to write a collection of poetry about the storm. He said, you're going to write it in a part one and part two. So, part one, God was like, tell your story. Start from the beginning, which was that it started to rain one day and it didn't stop. and just go chronologically and tell what happened and how you felt and how your emotions were and how you feel now as a reaction to those things. And then he was like, when you catch up, when you get all your feelings out, he said, turn it over to me. And he said, part one is going to be dark, but part two is light, and part two is where the hope is. And he's like, bring me into the narrative and ask me your questions, ask me where I was, what I was doing, what my plans were for this, and he said, I'll tell you. Like, I will heal your heart through this. And I was like, okay, God. um,
Wow.
for like 3 to 4 weeks, I just couldn't stop writing. I hand wrote all of these in my journal. I'll have these journals for the rest of my life. Um, and I just would, and I had no plan, no outline, no plan. I work in ministry and I've written a Bible study before, co-wrote a Bible study with my goodness, not employee, my coworker Mallory. I can't think of what she is to me. But anyways, it's like I've written stuff before, and it's always like I have an outline. I have very detailed notes. This is what I want to say when. I had none of that with these poems. It was literally I just would feel in my spirit it's time to write for the day. So I'd sit down and I would just start writing, and I would look at a blank page and not know what I was going to say, and then all of a sudden know exactly what I was going to say.
Wow.
It's the
Wow.
most spirit led thing I have ever done in my life. And so I wrote, I listened to the Lord and I wrote. And also at one point, God was like, these are not going to stay in your journal. You need to put these in the world. And I was like, what you saying? Because I don't know about that. That feels really scary. I have like laid my soul open and bare on these pages. And you're telling me I need to let other people read that? And he was like, yeah, because I gave you these words, and these words were to heal your heart, yes, but they can heal others too.
Yeah.
Um, People need it. Like it's almost a year later, and Western North Carolina is still hurting. There are
Yeah.
people that are still not in their homes, that may never get to go back to that plot of land that they thought would be home forever. Roads are still out and gone, and gravel and trees still come down if it's a really bad, like the ground is never going to be the same again, and people are hurting. And I think the 1 year anniversary is going to be really hard. I'm not particularly looking forward to it, but I know like God gave me a message that needs to be shared, and so I'm just trying to be obedient to share that. So, so
Right.
I put all the poems into a book. It's called "Coming Home with Shouts of Joy: Finding Home After Hurricane Helene." Just like I talked about earlier, I wrestled a lot with where is my home, what is home, and the Lord showed me like home is eternity with Him, that I get to be with Him. Psalms, I have it written on my wall right here. Psalms 126, 5 through 6 says, those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy. He who goes out weeping, bearing the seed for sowing, shall come home with shouts of joy, bringing his sheaves with him. And
Mm.
reading that scripture, the very last poem in the book is titled Coming Home with Shouts of Joy, based from this scripture. And I was like, God, I've wept, I've sowed, and I pray that one day I'll know, that I get to come home with you. And my prayer is that everybody that reads this book also gets to experience that same feeling of home with the Lord, that they are a believer, they're encouraged to keep going with Him, and then reminded of just truths of who He is and where He was. But also, I pray that people pick up this book that don't know the Lord. I share the gospel pretty straight up in it at one point. And I pray that they would just get to see a God that maybe they've never seen before, a God that is there in times of trouble. I feel like when things are hard or we live through awful disasters, it can be really easy to blame God. Like, He made it happen. But we know bad things don't come from God. But we know we do live in a sinful, broken, fallen world. So bad things will still happen because we have free will, you know. But God is still good in spite of that. And He is still there and He's still working. And I just pray that the book can be a vessel for people to see that and to just give their weary hearts hope.
Yeah. Oh, wow. You know, as you're saying that and everything, it talked about writing all the, the poems and everything. It just reminds me of David, writing the Psalms and, how who all, we all love those, because we find ourselves in them. And, and I think, but being willing to, not just bury our heart, our souls, our heart and everything before the Lord, but
Hmm.
then say, yes, Lord, I will go ahead and then I will put it out for others. But, I just, I can't imagine it not bringing healing. And of course, we know, the God says his word shall not return void. And I
Yeah.
think, typically we're looking at God's words in the Bible, but if he's inspired these and he's giving you this, then this, he's in that as well and everything. So yes, and I would say, talking about how there's still devastation there and stuff, and how many people, we go on with our lives, I'm sure there, there was this influx of people and
Yeah, there
everything,
was.
and that was great. And but it's like, then it's like, okay, and then some of that stuff, like you said, it's going to take years. You can't
It,
just
yeah, it will be years until
to
things go back to normal, and even then, everything is so changed, it'll never be the way.
yes, yeah, yeah, it won't be the normal that it was and
Mhm.
everything, but wow. Mm. So has your family read this book?
Yes. Yeah, I called them back in, I think it was March, because there was like about a month after I finished the poems before I was able to start like workshopping them. I had two friends, Matt and Caroline. They were awesome. They helped me like edit them and make the poems better. But there was about a month before they could help me. And so I'm like calling all my family. I'm like, hey, God told me to do this, and I think it might be hard for you to read the first part, because I never shared any of these feelings with you, but I need you to read it because the second part's really good because it's straight from God. And also called, like, I mentioned your name, your story, like, can I get permission to publish that kind of thing?
Right.
So they've read it. My mom read it. My mom's not the biggest reader. It takes her a while to read stuff. And I emailed it to her, and she read it all in one sitting that night and called me the next day crying. It's like, it's so good. You have to do this. This is from the Lord. And I was like, okay. My grandma,
Wow.
she's been so cute. She's my biggest like championer with this. She's like, I love it. I need everyone to read it. I think she's planning on buying like multiple copies to hand out. She's giving like raving reviews for it. It's really cute.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And so now, when is it? So when is it coming out?
Yes, so the book will release on September 27th, 2025. So
Okay.
on the 1 year
On the anniversary.
anniversary, because I'm self-publishing, I got to pick little details like that. So yeah, it's open for pre-order now at my website, authorbayleysanders.com. I'm sure Violet can get it in the show notes for you guys.
Yeah.
Pre-order now. If you pre-order, it will come autographed with a free bookmark. But then after it launches or it releases on the 27th, it will be available on Amazon as well.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, that's not, that's just a few weeks away
Ah,
and everything. So, and I hope it just gets out, the word gets out and to so many people and things like that. So,
I'm thankful for the opportunity to be on your podcast to get in front of an audience who may not be all from, I don't know where all of your audience is from, you know.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
excited for opportunities. I've been hitting this pretty hard in my local places, but I'm very grateful for the opportunity to tell people outside of the Western North Carolina bubble about this. And I pray that y'all remember, like, we still need help. We're still
Right.
we're still walking through this. And I think to, even if you didn't live through Helene, like, I want to encourage you to still get this book, because I think a lot of people can still relate to the feeling of my world is turned upside down and now what do I do, or wrestling with questions like why does a good God let bad stuff happen. It's very Helene specific, yes, but I do think there's a message in there for everyone, honestly.
Yes, because we all go through things.
Hmm.
And as you're talking there, just a little bit before we got on this call this morning, um, I have a Facebook group, and so I usually put a scripture and some commentary in it, every day. And so the thing that I wrote this morning was talking about, Hagar, and and
Mhm.
her going through things, and where she said he's the God who sees.
Yeah.
And so, just as we're having this conversation, I'm like, we all need to know that. We all
Mhm.
need to know, not, we don't just need to know that as far as head knowledge. We all need to know that he does see, he sees us, and we all need to know him. We all need to know the God who sees, because
Yeah.
he saw every bit of that, and he saw that hurt, he saw what you were going through from your standpoint, and able to do that. And so, yes, even when bad things happen, he sees, and he's still good. He's
Yeah.
still good. And he's there with us in it, through it, in all of it and stuff.
Amen.
So um so I do like to still ask, I'll still ask like I do all my guests and everything. Of course, this is something that's happened most recent in your life, obviously. But I mean, you didn't just get to know God as of a year ago.
No. I've known him for
So
a while now.
I started to say, obviously, because you're not going to have that relationship. So, but during the time that you have known him, and everything, now, and did you kind of grow up knowing God,
Mhm.
and everything? I know we've talked, but I've talked to another couple of people since then too. So
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I get stories mixed up, so I don't want to, say something incorrectly. Uh,
Mhm.
but so you've got that relationship, that base with him, and everything. So have you had like a life verse? Um, and of course you quoted a scripture for us, and that's in there, and I don't know if that was it, but have you, over the course of your life, and I'm saying that, I mean, you're not very old. To me,
No,
you're not very, I mean, you're
I'm
not. So,
25.
yeah, yeah. So see, but even at that, has there been a life verse that you've kind of had um, over the years?
I think I'm pretty sure it's Ephesians 3:20. I'm like the worst with remembering references.
It's
Um,
okay.
just talking about how God does all things exceeding abundantly above that we ask or think, to His glory.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, I clung to that a lot of like, okay, I want these things in my life. I had these dreams, but I know that God can do even more than that. But as I've gotten older, I realize like God does more because it's to his glory. Like it's not because he wants to give me this perfect life where I have everything I ever dreamed of and more, because God just is this genie that gives me wishes like what I want. But realizing that like God does more than we ever ask or think because he's God. And when he does more than we ask or think, that shows his glory and his greatness and his goodness. If you just heard a jet plane go over, I'm sorry.
Oh, I
Planes
didn't hear
fly.
it.
Okay. We have jet planes that fly really low over our house and they're very loud sometimes. Anyway, just that he does it for his glory. And I was actually thinking this morning, kind of reflecting on just this whole process. I'm like, the hurricane was almost a year ago, and I had no clue on September 27th, 2024, that I would live through all of that, and that I would come out a year later with a book as a published author. Like, what? That was definitely more than I ever thought. And God did that because He's going to get the glory from this, because I can't take a single ounce of credit for any of these poems, because I'm not a poetry girl. Like, I think that's the reason it's a book of poetry. And so I can very clearly say the Spirit did this, the Lord did this, and He is good. So I think just realizing all the things in my life that happened so I can point to God and give Him the glory.
That's good. That's good. So, and knowing what you know now, not just coming through Helene, but knowing what you know now, coming through your life that you've lived so far, what maybe encouragement would you like to leave, or even, or advice would you like to leave with the audience? And I'm
Honestly,
just gonna, and let me throw this in. I typically don't, but I just feel, especially maybe, can apply to everybody, but
hmm
especially to the ones that are younger, because I
yeah,
think sometimes, we discount ourselves if we think we're too young, or maybe, unfortunately, others that are older discount younger
hmm
because of their age. And that's, God. God uses us all, and He doesn't look at that physical age and stuff. So yes. So what kind of encouragement or advice do you want to leave out there?
Yeah. The first thing that came to my mind when you added that was that the same spirit that rose Christ from the dead lives in you. He lives in
Yeah,
me and he lives in you. And because of that, like, God's with you. You can do it. Like, if he tells you to
yeah,
do something, be obedient and do it. I know it can feel scary. I'm scared.
right.
Podcast interviews are scary, and promoting a book is scary, and going to a book signing with a buttload of books that I don't know are going to sell or not. Like, that's scary. But we can't be trapped in the fear of what might happen if
Yeah,
this or if that, or I'm too young, they're not going to listen to me. I've had that thought a lot in my life because the Lord's made me do a lot of things. It's like, God, I feel way too young. What are you doing? But it doesn't matter because the same spirit that rose Christ from the dead lives in me because I am his daughter, his princess, So I don't know, to just be bold. Like, it's okay to be bold and confident in what God has called you to do. Because he's called you to do it and he will be with you when you do it. So you don't need to be afraid. Just do it with
yeah,
God.
yes. No, that's so good. And even if you're afraid, do it afraid, right?
Yeah, do it. That's what I'm doing. So,
Yeah, do it afraid. Let that obedience and that courage override the fear of everything.
mhm.
Oh, I have so enjoyed having you on here,
Me
and
too.
looking forward to your book coming out. And you know, you will never know until we get to heaven who all that's going to affect. But like I said, I can't imagine it not bringing such healing to so many, and that's just wonderful. But again, thank you for being on here. We
Yeah.
will have, how you can reach her, get her book, how if you want to pre-order it. We'll have everything in the show notes here, the description, and reach out and get this, because like she said, it's not just about the hurricane. We all go through storms, and we all go through times, and it affects everyone. Whenever we go through trauma, there's those lasting effects, and there's all that emotional stuff and everything. So that's great. So I always like to leave the audience with the promise. I believe it's the promise that we have in Isaiah 43:2. And it says, and how appropriate, I guess, is this one: when you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, nor shall the flames scorch you. So again, if this episode has been encouraging to you, please like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment, share this with a friend. This is coming out the 1st of September. And so, help get this out so people can order that book and have it available here in a few weeks. And just as a reminder, if you're feeling stuck or you're feeling confused in your walk with God, schedule a free call with me, because he doesn't want you stuck and confused. So, all right, Bailey, thank you so much. You have a wonderful day, and we'll be keeping up with you in your book.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right.